The red thread's 52 clues positive identification of the Israelites. From author's book, Sounding the Shofar. By Betty Matteson Rhodes, written in 2008, printed in USA in 2008. Clue 1, a scattered people. I would scatter them into the corners of the earth. Jude 32:26. For the Lord, YHWH, shall smite Israel. And he shall root up Israel out of this good land, which he gave to their fathers, and shall scatter them beyond the river, because they made their groves, provoking the Lord to anger. And he shall give Israel up because of the sins of Jeroboam, first king of northern Israel, who did sin and who made Israel to sin. 1 Kings 14:15-16. Gen 28:14 And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south, and in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. When the Israelites regain their memory, the Bible indicates they will return from the north and from the west, and from Sinim, which means, number 55:15, a people living at the extremities of the world, such as Australia, America, New Zealand, Iceland, the Northern Isles, etc. Locations at the far reaches of the earth, from their ancient hub, which was the Middle East. Isaiah 49:12 Behold, these shall come from afar, and lo, from the north and from the west, and these from the land of Sinim. Initially, the northern kingdom of Israel was scattered about the face of the earth, starting from 917 BCE, when the kingdom of Israel divided into two nations, right up until the two kingdoms of Israel become reunited again. Yes, they have been reunited, as you will see later on in this book. The Israelites would be scattered across the river, i.e. the ocean, going in a northwesterly migration from the point of beginning, which was from Egypt, Jerusalem. From Jeremiah 50:17 Israel is a scattered sheep, the lions have driven him away, first the king of Assyria hath devoured him, the northern kingdom, and last, this Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon hath broken his, Judah's, bones, mightiness. Jeremiah 50:18 Therefore thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Behold, I will punish the king of Babylon and his land, as I have punished the king of Assyria. Clue 2, a planting of Judah's royal line. There was a cropping, grafting, and planting of the royal family of Judah that took place. They were planted in a land amidst the northern tribes of Israel. The tender twigs refer to a princess, or princesses from the tribe of Judah, the daughter, of the king. Ezekiel 17:22-24 I will take of the highest branch of the high cedar, and will set it, I will crop off from the top of his young twigs, a tender one, and will plant it upon a high mountain and eminent. In the mountain of the height of Israel will I plant it, and it shall bring forth boughs, and bear fruit, and be a goodly cedar. I the Lord have brought down the high tree, Judah's king, have exalted the low tree, northern Israel, have dried up the green tree, Judah's male line, and have made the dry tree to flourish, northern Israel to flourish. Jeremiah 50:19 And I will restore, Israel again to his habitation, beautiful place of abode, and he shall feed on Carmel, beautiful gardens, and Bashan, bountiful orchards, and his soul shall be satisfied upon Mount Ephraim, doubly fruitful lands of Great Britain and America, and Gilead, beside piles of rocks heaped up to certify a covenant. Jeremiah 50:20 In those days, after the planting, and in that time, saith the Lord, the iniquity of Israel shall be sought for, and there shall be none, and the sins of Judah, and they shall not be found, for I will pardon them whom I reserve. A beautiful new land overflowing with gardens of grains, vineyards, and fruit trees, was given to the Israelites, including Judah, to keep forever. Remember, that the roots of Israel were planted in the Northwest Isles, and Joseph's vines spread out, but an Irishman is still an Irishman no matter where he may roam. A Scotsman will always be a Scotsman, his roots are planted in the Isles and they do not seem to forget their planted roots either. I am a genealogist as well as a researcher, nearly all of my ancestors come from the British Isles, with the exception of a couple lines from France. When asked my nationality, it is always Scots-Irish-Welsh-English, even though 98% of my family lines came to America in the 1600s. My roots are in those Isles. Deuteronomy 28:36 The Lord shall bring thee, and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. Referring to the northern Israelites. Clue 3, Scepter and Lawgiver. Gen 49:10 The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. The scepter means the mark of authority, which is used by divine providence. The tribe of Judah retains the badge of authority as lawgiver and advisor. By the staff of Judah, are the tribes gathered and reunited. This was accomplished under King James I of the United Kingdom of Scotland and England. It was King James I, holding the scepter as king, having the mark of authority as lawgiver, who had the King James Bible printed. See later section on King James I and the identification of Judah. Clue 4, Blessings heaped upon blessings. Joseph, representing the northern kingdom of Israel, can be identified by numerous blessings heaped upon his descendants. Blessings from heaven, from the oceans, and blessings that begin at birth, as if to say Joseph's descendants are born with a silver spoon in their mouth. The Israelites would remain a favored and protected people after the scattering and after the reuniting. The scattering, in part, was a blessing in disguise for their own protection. The Israelites would always manage to receive blessings as the anointed ones in spite of the scattering. Joseph's land would become the breadbasket of the world, for did not Joseph feed his people during the years of famine? Clue 5. Loss of identity. Duke 32:26. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. First, the Israelites are to become scattered to the four corners of the globe, and then their identity would cease from remembrance among men. The Israelites themselves would lose memory of the land and peoples from whence they originated, and, over time, other nations and races would not know them as Israelites either. The origins of these people would be a mystery for thousands of years, seemingly without an original point of origins. How many races of people have forgotten where their earliest ancestors originated? Surely not the Chinese, the Japanese, Eastern Indians, Black Africans, Ethiopians, or the indigenous peoples of the world. Only the white race is without knowledge of their original homeland. Clue 6. 7 times prophecy. Plain as daylight and right on target, this time prophecy takes place as scheduled. The biblical 7 times punishment points the way to the exact timing for the reuniting of the two kingdoms with no chance of mistaken identity. This is a period of time, which began in 917 BCE, the exact year history records the initial breakup of the en masse kingdom of Israel. In 917 BCE, Jeroboam led the revolt of the northern tribes and established the northern kingdom of Israel. This 7 times period would keep the two kingdoms divided right up until the grand reuniting of the two kingdoms in 1603, for a total of 2,520 years, or 7 times 360. At this time, 1603, the two kingdoms of Judah and Israel would become one again. In 1603, they were reunited under one king, King James I of Great Britain. Prior to this year, Scotland had its own throne and England likewise had their own throne. From 1603 to the present day they have been united under one flag and one throne. Scotland, as you will learn in this book, is Judah. England's Anglo-Saxons are Joseph, as you will see later in this book. Is there any other nation, kingdom, or people that can match this time frame exactly? Clue 7. Stranger becomes head, Israel the tail. Deuteronomy 28:43 The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him, he shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. The stranger amongst the lost tribes are the people known today as the Jews. The Jews adopted the religion of Judaism around the year 1000 CE AD. Judaism is not the religion of the ancient Israelites. The world has come to believe that the people who adopted the title Jews, and the religion of Judaism, are the true and only Israelites, but this assumption is wrong. The Jews have thereby become the head whilst the true Israelites have become the tail. Note, many of today's Jews were once known as Khazar people, who originated from the area of Turkey and Eastern Europe. They are in fact, Gentiles, not Israelites. The true identity of the Jews will be discussed later in this book. There are two branches of Jews, one called the Khazar Jews, and the other called Sephardic Jews. The Sephardic Jews were previously known as the Pharisees and were condemned by Jesus as being of the devil. Source: New Testament. The people we know as Jews today never had their own beautiful homeland since they became Jews in the year 1000 AD. The land called Israel in the Middle East, since 1948, was taken from the Palestinians, and was not given to the Jews by divine providence. Is there any other group or race of people that can be as misrepresented as are the true Israelites? 5 short informative videos to watch about how the banking system works. The banking beast. Clue 8, a king for all times. Israel would always have a king-queen with an inherited royal throne. This throne would be a perpetual continuation from the throne of King David, for thus saith the Lord, David shall never want for a man, or woman, to sit upon the throne of the house of Israel. Jeremiah 33:15-17. The house of Israel is found within the descendants of Joseph's sons, whom Jacob gave his name, Israel. After all the male lineage from the royal line of Judah was killed and or captured by Babylon's Nebuchadnezzar, Jeremiah took the tender twigs, the king's daughters, and the remaining remnant of Jews to the isles. Where do we find a nation and people that have had a continuously occupied throne for over 3,000 years that match all the other descriptions on this list? Evidently the northern tribes kept their king after they were scattered, as we read in Deuteronomy 28:36 The Lord shall bring thee, and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. Clue 9, Simeon and Levi tribes divided. The Levites, who were the priests among the ancient Israelites, accompanied the southern kingdom of Judah after the two kingdoms were divided. Simeon was to go with the northern tribes. These two tribes were separated because as a pair they were a force to be reckoned with due to their displayed anger and hostility, thus they were scattered amongst the tribes. This because of your anger and hostility, as a pair, you shall be divided. Prophecy gives us the first indication that there was going to be two separate groups among the Israelites when we read that Simeon and Levi were to be separated. Double this separation with memory loss, and the northern tribes would not even recognize the tribe of Judah as such when they would eventually be reunited, let alone know the Levites. Today, Simeon and Levi still remain separated, and the deep-rooted reason has never entered their minds as such. Now, if we could just get them to use this energy for the right reasons, we would have one powerful entity working toward Shiloh. More on Levi and Simeon later. Clue 10, New Homeland. The Lord shall bring you and your king, which you shall set over you, into a nation which neither you nor your fathers have known, and there shall you serve other gods. Jude 28:36. If today's Jews were truly Israel, when did they have a perpetual throne and king in a foreign land, which was unknown to their forefathers? Jeremiah would plant the remnant from the kingdom of Judah in a nation unbeknownst to their ancestors, and from this new homeland they would prosper and receive bountiful blessings. Their cup runneth over. Never again would the Israelites call the old Jerusalem home. In addition, as Joseph's descendants became more numerous, they would expand and grow like a vine, spreading over the boundaries, branching out into new lands, which would become additional nations for these people. The initial planting was highly successful, and there has been no official order for them to become uprooted from these new lands. Wherever the Israelites hang their hat, that is their home. Modern Jews never had a homeland of their own. Before 1948, which was not by divine providence, they did not have abundant natural blessings heaped upon them like spoiled children. The reason for this will be explained in more detail later on in this book. The Celts are the ancestors to many of the present-day people in Scotland, Wales, Ireland, Brittany, and Cornwall. The Celts, aka Gallic or Galatians, came first to the Northern Isles around 600 BCE, from the area of Spain and France, but not all at the same time, as they came in waves of three. These three waves of tribal groups were the Gaels, Britons, and Belgae. The Gaels were first, spreading to Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man. The second wave of Celts was the Brythons. The last arrivals were the Belgaic tribes, who settled in the southeast of Britain. Jeremiah took the remnant from the kingdom of Judah to the Isles 586 to 557 BCE, and thereafter the combination of Celtic and the remnant of Judah merged in marriage, culture, and eventually religion. The Anglo-Saxons, a Germanic people, crossed the North Sea and found their way to England, arriving in 400 CE AD. Prior to coming to the Isles, they lived in the areas of today's Holland, Denmark, and Germany. Clue 11, serving a different god. The Israelites, once they were given their new homeland and nations to rule, would continue to serve a different deity other than the ancient God whom their forefathers served. Pertaining to the difference in God's right, wrong, or indifferent is not the point here, just stating that they would be serving a different God as predicted by Scripture. Christianity first reached Britain before the 4th century CE, and to Ireland around 430 CE. Prior to their conversion to Christianity, the Celts had priests called the Druids who gave them a form of religious worship and rituals. Today, nearly all Israelites are Christians. Clue 12, possesses the gates of their enemies. Genesis 22:17, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying, I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. The Israelites would possess or own major harbor ports, gateways, seaports, and entryways, even those of their enemies. The fact that they would also sell this blessing, or give away these important sea gates, has nothing to do with the initial blessing. They were originally in possession of all these strategic gates. Divine providence, not mere coincidence, was behind Britain and the United States, as Ephraim, gaining control of virtually all of the world's major sea gates during the last 200 years. Ports and gates have changed hands, they have been given away, sold, etc. But new strategic points have been added in double measure, such as America's military bases all around the world. More gates have been added, not less. Through Abraham's son, Isaac, and his wife Rebekah, was this blessing obtained: may your seed possess the gates of those that hate you. The Israelites possessed the strategic gates promised in the initial blessing. Gates of their enemies are ports of entry or passage such as Hong Kong, Singapore, Gibraltar, Falklands, Panama, Philippines, Suez Canal, Malta, Heligoland, and others. The tribes of Israel have, or have had, all of these and more. They have an air base in Libya, a base in Cuba, they have bases in Japan, bases in the islands of Japan, in the Pacific Ocean, and in the Indian Ocean, as well as in every sea and in every ocean, in Greenland, in Saudi Arabia, in the Persian Gulf, in northern Iraq, i.e. Kurdistan, they have all kinds of facilities of strategic importance all over the world, not all of which are commonly known or publicized. They were promised to the chosen people, i.e. descendants of Isaac and Rebekah, through their son, Jacob, and these promises have been fulfilled. Source: Britam.org. Clue 13, Two horns of a unicorn. Deuteronomy 33:17 speaking of Joseph and referring to his two sons, his glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns, with them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, and they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. Two horns of a unicorn represent two great powers that were given great authority from the Elohim. Ephraim and Manasseh, the two sons of Joseph, were to be as two horns of a unicorn, which would steer, push, all the nations together at the end of the age of Pisces, to become unified under one objective. This could be to prepare the way for the state of Shiloh. Perhaps this is what the one world government is all about, who knew? Divine providence. Descendants of Ephraim and Manasseh will be the maestros of this colossal undertaking, which is ordained by the Lord of the ancient Israelites. This undertaking is well under progress even as you read this. Note, the unicorn is featured in the United Kingdom, British, Scottish, French, Swiss, and Czech heraldry. Clue 14, Ephraim becomes a company of nations. Genesis 48:19 Manasseh will become a great people, but truly his younger brother, Ephraim, shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. Genesis 35:11 Be fruitful and multiply, a nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. El Shaddai, the Almighty, gave this prophecy to Jacob after his name had been changed to Israel. Genesis 48:19. Manasseh would become a great nation, but Ephraim his younger brother, would be greater, as his seed would become a multitude of nations, or a company of nations. Joseph's combined descendants from the two sons would become so numerous as to exceed the boundaries of the Northwest Isles, their new rooted homeland, making it necessary for them to branch out into larger countries. Joseph's descendants would overflow the walls like a spreading vine, but no matter where they wandered, their roots would always be in the Isles. After the reuniting, the pattern for Ephraim began its prophesied effectiveness. The name Ephraim means double fruitfulness. Double can also indicate many times over in different ways, such as in gaining landmass, nations, countries, peoples, power, etc. Around the year 1600 CE, new continents were discovered. The United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and many outward islands became inhabited by Joseph's descendants. At one time, the sun never set on Great Britain, due to all the countries, isles, and nations she ruled. Since World War II, America and Great Britain have been the superpowers of the world. They are, together, two horns of unicorns that will steer nations to one objective. So, to say that Great Britain is Ephraim is correct, likewise, to say that America is Ephraim is correct, for they share the responsibility and power. America is a company of nations made up of 50 states, and so was Great Britain a company of many nations in the past. See section on Ephraim Manasseh. Clue 15, Baal worship. The name Baal means Lord. Lord Baal worship was instituted as the official religion of the northern Israelite tribes under Ahab. Baalism was the religion of the Phoenicians and Canaanites. There were several lords and all were under the name of Baalim, or Bakpir. Generally a lord does not hold as much authority as an Elohim, God. See later section on gods. Baalim was said to involve sun worship, and that is why the winter solstice, which fell on December 25th, was so important to the northern Israelites. Solstice means sun stop, and so it meant the annual death and the rebirth of the sun. The ancient peoples observed the equinoxes in great detail, which were days when the light of the sun was equally divided between night and day. Most of these sun beliefs were the introduction to astronomy and science, which acknowledged that the planets revolve around the sun, and not the earth. The ritual sunrise service held at the crack of dawn is the exact point where night is equally divided with day on the spring equinox. The Christian holy day of Easter comes from Baalim, and many think the name was in honor of Baal's wife, Ashtoreth. However, it was called Easter because the sun rose in the east. It was a celebration of spring, actually. Israelites celebrate spring all over the world, in one way or the other, for it is a joyous season, as the death hold of winter's grip has ended. Easter is the yearly observance of the sunrise coming up in the eastern skies, which was transferred to the religion of Christianity. Clue 16, Ephraim a, pan, cake half done. Hosea 5:9 Hosea 7:8 Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people, Ephraim is a cake not turned. Strangers have devoured his strength, and he knoweth it not, yea, grey hairs are here and there upon him, yet he knoweth not. And the pride of Israel testifieth to his face, and they do not return to the Lord their God, nor seek him for all this. Ephraim also is like a silly dove without heart, they call to Egypt, they go to Assyria. Ephraim will become desolate in the day of rebuke, for he has mixed himself among the people, and is like a cake that is only half done. Strangers, people that are not Israelite, have devoured Ephraim's strength, and he does not even realize it. Desolate. Number 8047 Shama Shammor from number 8074, ruin, by implication, consternation, astonishment, desolate, ion, waste. Number 8074 Shamam Shormam, a primitive root, to stun, or intransitively, grow numb, i.e. devastate, or, figuratively, stupefy, both usually in a passive sense, make amazed, be astonished, be an, astonish, meant, be, bring into, unto, lay, lie, make, desolate, ion, places, be destitute, destroy, self, lay, lie, make, waste, wonder. Number 8076 Shamam Shormam from number 8074, ruined, desolate. Ephraim has opened his doors to many foreigners, which is like inviting the wolf into the hen house. They enter Ephraim's borders, zapping his strength, which seems to prevent the Israelites from realizing their full potential. We can see this occurring today in nearly all Israelite nations, America, the British Isles, Western Europe, the Netherlands, and others. Gen 48:16 The angel which redeemed me, Jacob, from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. Ephraim and Manasseh are to carry the birthright of the name Israel, not Judah. Clue 17, crown remains with Joseph. The utmost bounty of the everlasting hills shall be on the head of Joseph and on the crown of the head of him, Joseph, that was once separated from his brethren. The descendants of Joseph are to wear the crown. Joseph's brothers, mother, and father, voted Joseph as their king. Now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn son of Israel, for he was the firstborn, but, forasmuch as he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given unto Joseph, and the genealogy is not to be reckoned after the birthright. For Judah prevailed above his brethren, and of him came the chief ruler, but the birthright was Joseph's. Holding now the birthright as the oldest of the 12, Joseph received the greater of the blessings from his father. Joseph's birthright of firstborn passed on to his son Ephraim, making Ephraim God's firstborn. Joseph would maintain a crown throughout time, but Judah would be the chief ruler. From Judah's daughter, were the two thrones united. The throne of David is still intact and consists of the bloodline of both Joseph and Judah. Today, Scotland and England are under one crown. Clue 18, Joseph feeds the hungry. This is a pattern that has always been an identifying mark of Joseph. Joseph's descendants will always take it upon themselves to feed the hungry of the world, and even their enemies they will feed. This pattern never seems to leave Joseph's people. Consider what peoples are the first to feed the hungry of the world, with a record of altruism and caring for the underprivileged to the extent that they go broke doing so. Where you find these people, you will see Joseph, for by their fruits you shall know them. Clue 19, Joseph's coat of many colors. These blends of colors into one fabric were originally found in the tartans of the peoples of Scotland, Ireland, and England, and are patterned after Joseph's coat of many colors. Clue 20, colors red, white, blue. These three colors have stayed with the Israelites since ancient Egypt. Note, it is a good possibility that the ancient Egyptians were the same people as the Israelite people, who still use red, white, and blue in their identifying flags. These three colors were once used in the hats worn by Egypt's ruling families. Today they are used in the flags representing the Israelite nations. The ancient Egyptians were also once divided into a northern, lower, kingdom and a southern, upper, kingdom. There are many parallels with the ancient Egyptians and the Hebrews, but that is another book entirely. Hosea 13:4 I am the Lord thy God from the land of Egypt, and thou shalt know no God but me. Clue 21, Levite priests, Druid priests. No one really knows with complete certainty if the Druid priests were descendants of the Levites or not. Nevertheless, the fact that there were Druid priests in addition to so many other identifying patterns, they should be considered as a definite clue. For hundreds of years the Druids were the most important members of Celtic society. They knew from memory many of the original teachings, cures, and antidotes for better health, astronomy, astrology, as well as important priestly knowledge. In Celtic polytheism, a Druid was a member of the priestly and learned class in pre-Christian ancient Celtic societies. These societies existed through much of Western Europe, Britain and Ireland until they were supplanted by the Roman government and later diminished upon the arrival of Christianity. Druids were part of the cultures of the tribal peoples who were called Keltoi or Galatai by the Greeks, and Celti and Goli by the Romans. These words evolved into the modern English terms Celtic, Gaulish, and Galatian. In the communities they served, Druids combined the duties of priest, arbitrator, healer, scholar, and magistrate. Both men and women served as Druid priests. Remembering that the Levites were among Judah, and the Druids among the Celtic, ties into our clues well. Clue 22. The name Berith means covenant. This meaning is found in the word Bret and Brit, which in Hebrew means covenant. Ish means people or man, so to say the name British is to say covenant people. Today British people reflect Joseph and his sons, which were to retain the name Israel, the covenant people. Number 376 Aish, pronounced Ish, a man, people, person, husband, fellow. Number 1285 Breather compact, in the sense of cutting, covenant, league, confederacy. The Hebrew word, British, is the same word as British. Clue 23, grove worship. Long before Christianity was forced upon the Isles, the ancient Celtic people worshipped in groves much the same as the northern tribes of Israel. The Druids met in sacred groves on hills or by rivers, indicating a connection with Simeon as well as Levi. Simeon was with the northern kingdom of ancient Israel. The early Celts did not build temples or massive structures of worship, they worshipped nature in sacred groves called Nemeton, which was amongst the trees of the natural landscape. The name Nemeton came from the word Neom, which means holy, i.e. holy grove, or sacred grove, where they worshipped. There is a Hebrew word number 5144 nozol which means, to set apart for sacred purposes, to consecrate. Clue 24, timeline for Celtic people in the Isles. History recognizes that the Celtic peoples first appeared in the British Isles around 600 BCE. Ironically, it was in 615 BCE that the northern Israelite tribes were released from Assyrian captivity. It was 586 to 557 BCE when Jeremiah took the remnant of Judah to the Isles. A coincidence? Perhaps, but not likely, especially when there are so many other clues that all point to the same place and same people. The first Celts arrived in Ireland from mainland Europe, via Britain, beginning around 600 BCE, and after that a steady migratory troop called Ireland home between 350 and 150 BCE. The timing of historical evidence that points to the Celtic people being on the Isles, and the timeline the Israelites were released from captivity is remarkably important. Clue 25, stone cut from a large mountain. Gen 49:24 But his bow, Joseph's, abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. Hapismile Dan 2:45 Forasmuch as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. The stone that was cut off from the mountain is the British Isles, which was separated from the continent of Europe. The northern British Isles represent the stone, Europe the mountain. It is written of Joseph, from thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. Clue 26, Jacob's pillar stone, coronation stone. Gen 28:18-22 And Jacob rose up early in the morning, and took the stone that he had put for his pillows, and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil upon the top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of that city was called Luz at the first. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, If God will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat, and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God, and this stone, which I have set for a pillar, shall be, in, God's house, and of all that thou shalt give me I will surely give the tenth unto thee. The stone of Scone, aka the coronation stone, possibly since King Coniah the last legitimate king of Judah, aka Leophale, aka Jacob's pillar stone, aka the Tanist stone, is a block of sandstone that today rests within the coronation throne of English-Scottish monarchs. Previously crowned over this rock was Irish, Scottish and British monarchs. This well-known stone was probably taken to the Isles by Jeremiah and the remnant from the kingdom of Judah, whom he accompanied to the Isles. In the capital of the Scottish kingdom, Scone, was a venerable fragment of rock, to which, at least as early as the 14th century, the following legend was attached: the stony pillow on which Jacob slept at Bethel was by his countrymen transported to Egypt. Thither came Gathalus, son of Cecrops, Calcol, king of Athens, and married Scota, daughter of Pharaoh. He and his Egyptian wife, alarmed at the fame of Moses, fled with the stone to Sicily or to Spain. From Brigantia, in Spain, it was carried off by the favourite son of Milo the Scot, Gathalus, to Ireland. On the sacred hill of Tara it became Leophale, the stone of destiny. On it the kings of Ireland were placed. Source: Historical Memorials of Westminster Abbey, by Arthur Penrhyn Stanley. John Murray, London. 1876, p. 57. Clue 27, two sticks that form one stick. East 37:16-24 Moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick, and write upon it, for Judah, and for the children of Israel his, Judah's, companions, kinfolk, then take another stick, and write upon it, for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim and for all the house of Israel his companions, and join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in thine hand. And when the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, Wilt thou not show us what thou meanest by these? Say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel his fellows, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in mine hand. And the sticks whereon thou writest shall be in thine hand before their eyes. And say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whither they be gone, and will gather them on every side, and bring them into their own land, and I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king to them all, and they shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms any more at all. This might just be the most obvious of all the clues on this list. The word stick in Hebrew is etz, which can mean stick, tree, gallows, wooden plank, or timber. When we see these two sticks in living color, as plain as the nose on your face, then we can understand fully what is taking shape. These two sticks were once separate but became one in the year 1603 CE with the coronation of King James I. Look at the back cover of this booklet to find the two sticks that became one stick. Why the comparison to a stick or sticks in this manner? Because this symbol is very important to the lost tribes of Israel and has hereby come to represent them as a whole. When King James VI of Scotland ascended to the English throne, he thereby became James I of Great Britain, or rather, king over the reunited Israel. The national flags of England and Scotland continue to be, respectively, the red St. George's Cross and the white St. Andrew's Cross. Confusion arose, however, as to what flag would be appropriate at sea. On the 12th of April 1606 a proclamation was issued, All our subjects in this our isle and kingdom of Great Britain and the members thereof, shall bear in their main top the red cross commonly called St. George's Cross and the white cross commonly called St. Andrew's Cross joined together according to a form made by our heralds and sent to our admiral to be published to our said subjects. Clue 28, the Union Jack. The Union flag is called Union Jack because it is named after James I of Great Britain, whose name in Latin is Jacobus, pronounced Jacobus. From the name Jacobus, we get another waymark or cookie crumb leading back to Jacob. James I introduced the Union Jack flag in 1606, combining the flags of Scotland Judah and England Joseph. From the names, Andrew and George, come the anagrammed words, re-engaged, renewed, and wonder. Clue 29, Lion of Judah. Genesis 49:9 Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up, he stooped down, he couched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? The symbol of a lion is found repeatedly in Scottish and British heraldry and arms. The lion and unicorn adorn their coat of arms, flags, seals of royalty, as well as the seals representing their nations, queens, and kings. Richard the Lionheart, 1189 to 1199, used 3 golden lions on a scarlet background as a powerful symbol of the English throne during the time of the Crusades. The lion is a symbol of England and Scotland, and once represented Judah. Clue 30, David's harp. The Book of Psalms is full of the suggestions that David played his harp unto the Lord as a constant practice. Psalms 147:7 Sing unto the Lord with thanksgiving, sing praise upon the harp unto our God. One of the symbols of Ireland is the Irish harp. The harp arrived on the island's shores in pre-Christian times, brought to Ireland by the Israelites, originating in Egypt. Clue 31, Unicorn as symbolic. Do 33:17 His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns, with them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, and they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. Numbers 24:8 God brought him forth out of Egypt, he hath as it were the strength of an unicorn, he shall eat up the nations his enemies, and shall break their bones, and pierce them through with his arrows. Psalms 92:10 But my horn shalt thou exalt like the horn of an unicorn, I shall be anointed with fresh oil. The unicorn is a symbol of Scotland. On the official coat of arms of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland the unicorn is chained because in medieval times a free unicorn was considered a very dangerous beast and only a virgin could tame a unicorn. Perhaps this virgin was a Jewish princess. Clue 32, Agricultural abundance. Deuteronomy 33:13-14, And of Joseph he said, Blessed of the Lord be his land, for the precious things of heaven, for the dew, and for the deep that couche beneath. And for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things put forth by the moon. Joseph was blessed with agricultural prosperity, bountiful crops, productive lands, and mineral resources in abundance. God will give unto the Israelites the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth, with plenty of corn, wine, and wheat. The breadbasket of the world is what their lands would become. Clue 33, Military might. Israel, thou art the battle axe and weapons of war, for by the hand of Israel will the Lord break in pieces nations and will destroy kingdoms. Lord YHWH was a warrior god, and he uses the Israelites as his own private army. The tribe of Gad especially was called a troop. Further in this book you will see that the tribe of Gad can be identified with the Russian people. The historian, Ammianus Marcellinus, wrote that the Scots, Picts, and Saxons were also a warlike race of men. In more modern times, the British, Germanic, Russian, and American nations have had, or do have powerful armies. The armies of the Israelites are so effective, they are called upon to train other races how to set up a military. However, Esau's people would live and die by the sword, but they are not called the Lord's army with the Lord's blessing. Esau received the blessing from his father. Clue 34. Dreamers. Numbers 12:6 states, "If there is a prophet among you, I the Lord make myself known to him in a vision, I speak with him in a dream." Joel 2:28-30 "And it shall come to pass that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions, and also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit. And I will show wonders in the heavens, and in the earth, blood, fire, and pillars of smoke." Prophetic dreams and visions will come naturally to newly awakened Israelites, and rightfully so, as they did to Joseph and the prophets. Clue 35. A light unto the Gentiles. Isaiah 42:6 states that Israel was called in righteousness, and will be held in safekeeping by the Lord, for the Lord has given Israel for a covenant of the people to be a light unto the Gentiles. A light meaning to lead the way, set an example for, and to represent righteousness for goodness' sake. Safekeeping meant for them to be lost for safety's sake. The Israelites would be first with new inventions, new scientific discoveries, and numerous forms of improvements that would benefit all the world's populations. Clue 36. Zebulun dwells by the sea haven for ships. Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zidon. And of Zebulun rejoice Zebulun in thy going out, and Issachar in thy tents. They shall call the people unto the mountain there, and they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall suckle of the abundance of the seas, and of treasures hid in the sand. Cornish arms depict a fisherman on the left, and a tin miner on the right. As shield supporters, these two men are representative of the two leading industries that once dominated the state of Cornwall and are ID patterns for Zebulun, abundance of the seas, and of treasures hid in the sand. Zidon equals fishing and hunting. Number 67:21 Sidon or Sidon, from number 66:79 in the sense of catching fish, fishery. Cornwall is found at the very southern tip of England. From the throne of England, go directly west, then turn directly south and you will find Zebulun, or rather, Cornwall. Zebulun is represented by Cornwall, England, the very southern tip of the island, standing out like a friendly beacon over the sea. There are many sea havens around the world, but not all are friendly or safe. Cornwall is known for its beautiful lighthouses. Each individual tribe will be further identified in this book. Clue 37. The Judges. Genesis 49:16-17 Dan shall judge his people, as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path, that biteth the horse heels, so that his rider shall fall backward. Dan would not only judge the people of his own tribal members and country, but would also judge his fellow Israelites, although viewed much as an adder in their pathway. Nevertheless, Dan judges. I'm keeping this one a secret for now, you will be surprised to learn who judges the Israelites. See the tribe of Dan for explanation. Clue 38. Royal dainties and fat goodies. Happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed, and she called his name Asher. Asher was the son of Leah's handmaiden, Zilpah. Number 21:53 Zilpah, from an unused root apparently mean to trickle, as Zilpah equals a trickling, the Syrian given by Laban to Leah as a handmaid, a concubine of Jacob, mother of Asher and Gad. Myrrh equals number 39:10 Myrrh is an aromatic gum exuded by the leaves of the rock rose. Myrrh is very much like amber, which the land of Asher is famous for. Attributed to the tribe of Asher who would have an abundant horn of plenty. See the tribe of Asher for explanation. Clue 39. Beautiful poetry and goodly words. A natural trait of the tribe and people of Naphtali, the Norseman. Norseman, the Norse, is the ancient name for the people of Scandinavia, or the Nordic countries. The Vikings were Norse merchants and warriors, and beneath the guise of combat and fury, they were poets. When you sail the northern seas for years upon end, one needs to add a little spice to their life, and this was done through prose and stories. See the tribe of Naphtali for explanation. Clue 40. Waymarks set up. Jacob had a practice of setting of rocks as a marker and a covenant memorial. Genesis 31:44-48 Now therefore come now, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone, and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, Gather stones, and they took stones, and made an heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it Jegarsahadutha, but Jacob called it Galeed. And Laban said, This heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Galeed. Joshua also set up piles of rocks as a covenant. Joshua 24:25-27. So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day, and set them a statute and an ordinance in Shechem. And Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God, and took a great stone, and set it up there under an oak, that was by the sanctuary of the Lord. And Joshua said unto all the people, Behold, this stone shall be a witness unto us, for it hath heard all the words of the Lord which he spake unto us. It shall be therefore a witness unto you, lest ye deny your God. These waymarks also include the huge stone megaliths erected by the ancient ones to represent the path of the wandering Israelites, and when followed, would lead to the British Isles, where there are numerous megaliths and dolmens. The idea is to follow these waymarks backward to retrace their tracks. Not necessarily to physically return to the land of their origins, but rather to show waymarks of identification when the time was right. In addition, waymarks can also be in the form of names and titles, language similarities, and root words that lead back to the ancient Hebrew language. No matter which waymark one follows, waymarks are clues to finding the true Israelites. Code 41, Mission and Legend of Jeremiah. Jeremiah number 30 for 14 Major, Yirmeah, or Yirmiyah. Jeremiah took the tender twigs, the daughter or daughters of the last king of Judah, and fled Jerusalem at the time of the Babylonian massacre and capture. Before starting out for the northern isles, however, Jeremiah went to Egypt and was thereby instructed by the Lord to go plant these tender twigs, the daughters, in a new country, which we have no reason to think that he did not do. From these tender twigs would continue the royal bloodline of King David, without interruption and without fail. Evidently, they, or she, married a northern Israelite king who had arrived in the isles years earlier and had established a throne. But Johanan, the son of Kareah, and all the captains of the forces took all the remnant of Judah that were returned from all the nations whither they had been driven, to dwell in the land of Judah, even men, women and children, and the king's daughters, and every person that Nebuzaradan, the captain, had left with Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, and Jeremiah, the prophet, and Baruch, the son of Neriah. So they came into the land of Egypt, for they obeyed not the voice of the Lord. Thus came they even to Tarpanhes, Jer 43:5-8. The Lord warned that all those from Judah who stayed in Egypt would be killed, and many stayed anyway in spite of the threats. Jeremiah took his small remnant, including the king's daughters, to a northwest direction, and ended up in Ireland. There are many legends about the old prophet coming to Ireland about the same time, so there must be something to all these legends. The name of the prophet that came to Ireland was Iarbanel, and it was said that he came from Judea with princesses, and a scribe. Jeremiah is mentioned in the Irish annals under the name of Iarbanel. You will find the complete story online at http://www.ensignmessage.com/archives/jeremiahhinaran.html. Clue 42. Given names, surnames, and titles. In no other peoples but the Celtic Anglo-Saxons has the use of ancient Hebrew names been so prevalent in naming their children. Names such as Daniel, Jacob, Jeremiah, Adam, Isaac, Reuben, Benjamin, David, Asa, Isaiah, Thomas, Joseph, John, Matthew, Mark, Andrew, Luke, etc. In doing genealogy, I have noticed that these given names are quite prevalent throughout the past 400 to 600 years. In more modern times, however, these same biblical names are fair game to even the Gentiles. Names and words that continue down through the centuries are waymarks. The name picked means the painted people. Curiously, in Hebrew the word for painted is the very same word used for anointed, which means to smear, spread a liquid or oil, or the anointed ones, i.e. the painted ones. The Picts could have been from the original remnant that Jeremiah planted at the height of the northern tribes, i.e., the anointed ones. The name Saxon may derive from Saki, a derivative of Isaac, but I do not put too much weight to this word association, as the name Saxon also means knife from the word seeks, which is probably more correct. The name Isaac means to laugh in merriment, or laugh in play. If the name of Jacob's father survived from the sound of pronouncing his name, then it would have sounded more like Yits cork, which the word whiskey can be anagrammed, and there is Scottish whiskey, spelled without the E, and when the Scots drink this stuff, they do laugh greatly in merriment. Notice there is no E in Yitzcork. Number 3327 Isaac, Yitzchak Yitzcork from 6711, laughter, i.e. Motri, Jitchak, or Isaac, son of Abraham, Isaac. Clue 43, importance of horn, trumpet, shofar. The sound of the shofar or trumpet was used for the ingathering of the exiles. This tradition was taken on by the tribe of Dan, who was the last of the tribes in the line of marching, so they would gather up those of the other tribes who had fallen behind by sounding the shofar. In modern times, the horn of choice has been the bugle. The playing of a horn, bugle, is played as taps traditionally across most Israelite countries, as is revelry. There is the Irish horn and the French horn that are quite commonly known. Horns are used in military bands and include bugles, trumpets, natural horns made of a ram's horn, bagpipes, fifes, and usually drums. This tradition of sounding the horn began with the early Israelites. Clue 44. Joseph the Righteous One. Joseph's attribute of being fair, just, decent, and compassionate, continued within the descendants of Joseph. Not 100% of his people are kind and good-hearted, of course, but it would be a general overall trait found in Joseph's people to be compassionate, sharing and giving to others less fortunate. Clue 45. Taken by ship in bondage but not bought upon arriving. Deuteronomy 28:68. And the Lord shall bring thee into a new Egypt with ships, by the way whereof I spoke unto thee, thou shalt see it, old Egypt, their original origins before Jerusalem, no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, but no man shall buy you. Indentured servants coming to America consisted mainly of those living in abject poverty in England as well as various other northern European countries. These people had a natural instinct to get to America and took desperate measures to reach the New World. They voluntarily agreed to terms that required submission to a master for a specified period of time in return for free passage to the new English colonies. Their masters were the rich business and landowners, which had treated the poor peasants of their land quite harshly, thereby becoming enemies to fairness and justice. They were brought to America voluntarily indebted to their masters in exchange for free passage, but upon arriving they were not bought or sold as slaves. After working off their passage agreement, they were made freemen and free women. This very verse foretells the Israelites coming to America as indentured bondmen and bondwomen under contract until payment was fulfilled. They sold their labor by contract to the rich for the exchange of passage. However, they were not physically bought and sold upon arriving in the new land as slaves, just as the verse says, no man will buy you. These indentured immigrants, these Israelites, were meant to come to America, especially the poor ones of England and Western Europe, and where there is God's will there is also a way provided. It is called divine providence. Clue 46. Ark of the Covenant forgotten. Regarding the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord, neither shall it come to mind, neither shall they remember it, neither shall they visit it, neither shall that be done any more. True Israelites do not need the ark any longer, it is a thing of the past, nor do Israelites generally give it serious contemplation any longer. Clue 47. They will lend to you. Jude 28:43-40 For the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him, he shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. The head is today's Jews, the tail is the true Israelites. The Jews lend to the Israelites, which means that they own, run, oversee, and decide all the major financial banks, markets, and lending institutions that the Israelites need to use for lending. The Federal Reserve came into existence in 1913 and has been very busy deflating the value of the dollar ever since. The Federal Reserve came into existence in 1913 and has been very busy deflating the value of the dollar ever since. Clue 48. Manasseh meaning forgetfulness. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God has caused me to forget all my troubles and my father's family. Genesis 41:50-51. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God, said he hath made me forget all my toil, and all my father's house. Genesis 41:51. The prophecy and pattern for Manasseh, the older brother, was in effect from 927 CE to 1707 CE. To be explained later. This period of time resulted in the greatest forgetting era for the northern tribes. After 1707, glimpses of recognition began surfacing, and today, there are many tribal members that instinctively know that they are from the lost tribes of Israel. In 1603, the early stages of Ephraim's strength was kicking in, and from 1603 to 1993, the northern tribes have experienced the greatest effects of Ephraim's pattern. Manasseh forgot his father's family and his father's homeland shortly after the scattering began. It would take the pattern of Ephraim to start the memory process returning. Clue 49. Out of Egypt. Hosea 13:4 I am the Lord thy God from the land of Egypt, and thou shalt know no God but me. The British have always had a great fascination for Egyptology. There has been a long-standing love affair with ancient Egypt, which may have begun around 1798 with the discovery of the Rosetta Stone, which gave the Brits the capability of deciphering hieroglyphic writing. There has been a far deeper interest in ancient Egypt, and its people, than there has been with the state of Israel, amongst the true Israelites. Not only was Joseph, the ancestor of the Anglo-Saxons, but he was from Egypt, and his wife, being an Egyptian princess, could perhaps explain why there is such a keen attachment to the land and people of ancient Egypt. This author shares this great fascination with Egyptology. Clue 50. The name Hebrew, Hibernia. Hibernia is the island of Ireland, so named by the Romans, probably because they recognized the people as being Hebrew. Hebrew, number 5680 Ibri, one from beyond. Number 5676 a region across, or crossing over. The name Hibernia and Hiberia comes from the same place that the word Hebrew originates. All these names words mean the same thing, from beyond, crossing over. Hebrew, Iber, Iberi, Hiberia. Clue 51. In 1320 CE, Scottish people believed they were descendants of the line of Judah. The Declaration of Arbr 88 1320 CE English translation Most Holy Father and Lord, we know and from the chronicles and books of the ancients we find that among other famous nations our own, the Scots, has been graced with widespread renown. They journeyed from Greater Scythia by way of the Tyrrhenian Sea and the Pillars of Hercules, and dwelt for a long course of time in Spain among the most savage tribes, but nowhere could they be subdued by any race, however barbarous. Thence they came, 1200 years after the people of Israel crossed the Red Sea, to their home in the west where they still live today. The Britons they first drove out, the Picts they utterly destroyed, and, even though very often assailed by the Norwegians, the Danes and the English, they took possession of that home with many victories and untold efforts, and, as the historians of old time bear witness, they have held it free of all bondage ever since. In their kingdom there have reigned 113 kings of their own royal stock, the line unbroken a single foreigner, portion for the Declaration of Arbroath. The Scottish people had always suspected that they had a continuous kingship intact. However, to assume this kingship came from the Scythians is incorrect. Clue 52. 6 Celtic nations, 6 sons of Leah. Celtic, Leah's 6 sons Reuben, Simeon, Judah, Levi, Zebulun, Issachar, Brittany, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Cornwall, Isle of Man. 52 clues should not be dismissed as meaningless. These clues should open the memory of the lost tribes. There are probably dozens of addition identifying traits not mentioned here. All things considered, the above list does seem to point to a certain group of people who reflect the pattern for the identity of the lost tribes of Israel. We will also explore each individual tribe, and you may be in for a big surprise on a couple of these tribal ID patterns. Home.